for an incredible night. Oh, we're taking it up a notch.
Today we're talking about SEO. Super important for your wedding business. With us, Mr. David Stubbs, everybody.
All that matters is that when you're thinking about SEO, what do the couples actually search for? You've got something called user experience. That's an actual real-life bride and groom coming to your website. You'll want to convince them to get in touch and book you. And then you've got to also be appealing to Google. You could do all of that and still not rank because...
Hey, be sure you stick around because we're only getting warmed up.
Out of all of SEO, this is one of the only things you must do.
So that's the biggest tip, is you need one of them.
That's a need thing.
Welcome to Think Wedding Business, the podcast where we interview leading wedding entrepreneurs and find out what makes them a success in the industry. With me, Howard Wing.
And me, Adam Wing. Whether you're a florist or a photographer, a cake maker, videographer, new to the industry, or just looking for some inspiration, then this is the place to be.
So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. How are we doing, guys? Welcome back to Think Wedding Business. Today's an exciting one, and it's a different one, to be honest, because it's a subject that I don't really know anything about, but it's super important for your wedding business. Today we're talking about SEO. What does SEO mean? Search engine optimization. That's right. It's keeping it really simple. And we have got in today to chat to us all about it. Probably one of the, I'm going to say, the biggest
authorities on SEO in
the biggest expert I know in the wedding industry who utilises this tactic for his wedding business, and it's a brilliant one. So we're really pleased today to have with us Mr. David Stubbs, everybody. Here he is in the house.
Thank you for having me.
Well, before we get started, Howard, how well do you think your website is SEO'd?
I've got no idea.
Well, it's a good job David Stubbs is here then, isn't it?
So, listen, if you've been following me now for a long time, you know that we're big advocates for networking and that personal branding and meeting your clients and getting out. But sometimes people, they might not want to do that, but they still want to get work in the industry, and it's how do you do it? SEO is going to be one of those things you're going to have to employ. Because we're not all sort of extrovert people, want to go out and network and go to parties, but we still want to get work in the industry. So SEO and having that tied into your website and everything else that you do is going to be massively beneficial.
Isn't it? And for those that are happy doing both, you should be doing as much as you can. But certainly, if you're an introvert, it's a great tactic. So, Dave Stubbs, well done.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having
well
me.
done.
Absolute pleasure. Yeah. Howard, you've just done a little video on your phone, like introducing this Instagram, something along those lines. That fills me with dread. The thought, I was honestly in awe of you just picking your phone up and just doing that like within seconds, and I was just like, there's no way in a million years I could do that. And I think that's probably why I'm into SEO more, because I prefer to hide behind my keyboard and just be a little bit more quiet, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm an introvert, but I can't
No,
go
you're
as far
not, because
as that.
I've worked with you on many weddings over the years, and when you're on the wedding, you're just like any other photographer, a really good photographer who can work well with the couple, who can communicate well, and same with the guests. But outside of weddings, you don't really want to be doing all the networking stuff, do you?
No.
And there's not a lot of people there's some people that don't want to do that. So
is that why you got into SEO then, Dave?
Maybe. I've never been big on social media. You know, I do social media. I do social media for SEO with the priority of it feeding into my SEO. We can talk more about that later if you want. But no, I just don't feel like that's me. And I think I said not in an introvert, but equally I think I just prefer to do something a bit more technical. I think I'm more technical minded, and that's probably why I got into photography anyway. And then, I think that's probably what led me into getting into more SEO to run my business, really.
And obviously, you're a renowned wedding photographer, and a lot of the listeners will know that. But you run these SEO workshops for photographers.
Yeah.
And how many years have you been doing that? You've been doing it a
while.
I
started in 2016.
Okay.
And I started doing in small groups at hotels in Manchester, which worked really well. Yeah. And then as soon as COVID hit, everyone lost their weddings, as we all know. And then suddenly everyone wanted SEO help. What can we do with our time when we've got not shooting weddings? And over the first COVID lockdowns, I worked with 100 photographers one-to-one on Zoom. Around about 100 different photographers, not just the UK, abroad as well. So work with people in America and Europe and places like that. But
that's really good. That it's an extra leg to your business. It's a bit like what Neil Redfern was saying. You have different offshoots and little side hustles from your main business, and the education is a big way. That's when we launched our course, wasn't it? At the start of COVID. And the people that have the time then to really put the effort into it.
I think when I saw on Neil's, he was saying it's about 50-50 for him now, shooting weddings. And that.
Yeah, what's the percentage?
I would say 75-25, 75% weddings, 25% training, mentoring, SEO.
Great though,
so,
it's great. Just having those extra branches, different arms to your business.
Absolutely.
And it's like for anyone listening that doesn't do SEO, it's, you know, if you can, obviously you juggle, it's an extra plate to juggle, but it's an important one that can get another stream of inquiries and work and bookings. So obviously it's tailored towards photographers because you are yourself a photographer.
And videographers as well.
And videographers, of course.
It's very similar.
Would it apply to other types of wedding businesses though?
So the general SEO knowledge is applicable to every website on the planet.
Great.
Okay,
yeah, that's what I was hoping. Otherwise this would be boring to a lot of people.
Not just wedding suppliers, but when I teach it specifically for photographers because it's very photo based, but also something we were talking about off camera before was how couples search in Google for different suppliers, and that's different for every industry, not just a wedding industry, but it's different for photographers to singers to videographers to cake makers. It's different for everybody, and therefore the approach to SEO needs to be tailored to how couples are searching, which makes it different.
Yeah, it's just for the list, because we spoke about this off air. It's interesting what you said of how couples behave when they're searching for suppliers.
Yes.
If a couple are searching for their venue they've already booked, and they will search for photographers at that venue. Yeah. For example, Mitten Hall photographer, but they're not necessarily going to search for Mitten Hall videographer. I know that because I've done the research, and nobody's searching for these terms, but they will for photographers. Yeah. So it is interesting that you're going to have to think about it differently depending on what type of supplier you are.
Yeah, and another difference with the videography is, and I'm going to put a question on you, Adam, if someone was searching for videographer in Google, what would they search for?
Well,
if they're getting married at Sandhole Oak Barn in Cheshire, what would they search for?
It's been a while, but I did research and I tried to SEO my site, and the best one I found was Northwest Wedding Videographer, or whichever order that was.
And people do search for Northwest Wedding Videographer.
So it was regional stuff.
Yes.
And it was...
Cheshire for that venue would be definitely higher. Yeah. But the point I'm trying to make is when it comes to photographers, they only search for the word photographer. But with a videographer, they don't. There's different ways to describe, because some
filmmaker, video,
videographer, cinematographer. Yeah. So, and I know some videographers who don't like to be called videographers. I'm not a videographer. I'm a cinematographer.
They get snobby about it, don't they?
A bit snobby.
Well, I'm not bothered.
You might not be bothered, but all that matters is that when you're thinking about SEO, what do the couples actually search for? And yes, they might search for filmmaker a little bit. They might search for cinematographer a little bit, but videographer is the word.
Somebody called me a compare not long ago. I'm not to compare.
What happens when, I know this doesn't describe you fully anyway, but what happens when people search for wedding singer? You're not going to find you, are they?
They get Adam Sandler, don't they, from the film?
Yes,
so, I mean, like you say, every bit of SEO is different and tailored to each industry, isn't it? And people search differently within those different niches in the industry. Absolutely. So it's so complicated.
Well, the lesson here is that you need to really think about your couples, your target couples' behaviour and what they're going to be searching for, depending on what type of supplier you are, and try and do that research. Is that something that you do? Do you ask couples, how did you find me? And
I've definitely quizzed and questioned no kind of extensive research, but I've definitely quizzed my couples about how they work
and not
how
just
they found me.
How did you find me? Oh, Google. Do you go to the what did you search for?
What did you search for? How many websites did you look through? That type of thing.
It's good data to have, isn't it?
How you search,
Do you have that on your contact form when people inquiry? Do you put
I ask how they search for me through a contact form, and they might just write Google. And I don't really, for most couples, I won't then quiz them further. I kind of went through a period of research from my own knowledge. But the reason I have that on my contact form is because if it is from recommendation, because I do get recommendations as well, then you want to thank and say, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's the main reason. But
what percentage? Sorry, what percentage is purely coming from SEO?
About 3/4 of my work is purely from SEO. Yeah.
So it's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, completely different to you guys, which is
that's what it is. The opposite to us, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you'll probably get a majority of those bookings, or get a good percentage of those bookings. As for us, we're always like the personal. You got to go meet them, network.
talk about personal branding, networking, entering awards, things like that.
This is just
being the face of your brand.
This is all brilliant for a wedding business.
But
Yeah.
this is
an
great.
extra
There's a
leg to
different.
take.
It's a different approach, and
Yeah.
that's great for everyone listening.
I always say you need as many marketing sort of strategies as you can to prop your business up, and this is definitely one of them.
Sometimes the gut instinct is to think that a bride and groom, when looking for a supplier, will go off their friend's recommendation, and that's not always the case. Sometimes bride and grooms intentionally look for somebody different that none of their friends and family have had before. And actually, most of the weddings that I shoot, it's always the eldest sister or the last sister to get married or the last bridesmaid to get married, because they've been to their sister or bridesmaid's friends' weddings and they've experienced photographers, and now they want something different. Yeah, that might lend to more of my documentary style of photography that's more relaxed than some photographers. It might be because of that, but this is where SEO comes in, where they'll intentionally
It's a good point.
They want ownership of their own wedding.
It's a good point.
They want to feel every new parent. I mean, Adam, you're a new parent. Every new parent thinks that they want to do parenting different to every other parent there's ever been. We're going to do it our way. But that's exactly how bride and grooms think about their wedding as well.
Yeah.
We're going to do the wedding our way. It's going to be different to anyone else's wedding. Yeah, and therefore they're not going to go asking who did you have. They're going to go onto Google and find someone
It's
new
a good
and different.
point, because
This is really interesting.
In friendship circles, especially, it's quite competitive.
Yeah.
So, there'll be brides and grooms out there. That, well, we want to have the best wedding, and we want to. So we don't want. Although that person might have been great, we don't want them because we want to find something different. And
I've not had bookings specifically because of that very thing where they say, "Oh, Howard is amazing there," but because our friend had them, we want something totally different.
Yeah.
And I get a lot that say, no, we've seen him, we definitely want him.
Yeah.
But you've definitely got that percentage of people that want to do it completely different to the friends.
Yes.
So let's go back right to the start. What is SEO in like layman's terms? I'm hoping people know.
Well, as you said right at the beginning, SEO stands for search engine optimization, and it is simply making your website rank as high as possible in Google for couples to find you. It's as easy as that. So when they do hit Google to look for something, your website appears, they find you, and therefore hopefully that will go on and book. And something else is I teach as well as my SEO workshops is that SEO is only a third of the work, because that's just finding you. Then you've got to create a website that then attracts them enough to get in touch. And then once they've got in touch, you've got to convince them to actually give you some money to
it's the starting point, isn't it?
So whereas it's slightly different through recommendation, because you've got to remember that when someone is finding you for the first time in Google, it's like a cold call. They don't know anything about you before. Nothing whatsoever. They're literally just landing on a website. You're the same as every other supplier they've ever seen. Whereas Howard and Adam, if you come from a strong recommendation, that's different. They might not have even seen you sing or heard, you know what I mean, have been there. And they've gone off this massive record. They're not going to necessarily go to a wedding to say, we need to find out if Howard's a good singer or not. They just go off that strong recommendation. Yeah. Whereas when they're finding on Google, how good your website is more important than probably your website is.
Without a shadow of a doubt, it's once they're there, it's what's going to keep them there, and what's going to make them make that inquiry with you. So your website. Otherwise, it's kind of wasted work, isn't it?
I suppose they're more likely to really read your website and go through all the pages because they don't already have preconceived ideas about it.
Yes and no. When I do my business mentoring, I still talk about that you've still only got like 6 seconds to grasp their attention. And sometimes they'll see that first photo and they'll disappear straight away because they're just not interested. You know what I mean? And it's that quick. But you were right. But once you've got that initial attention, the website has to motivate them enough to start to think this could be the person to hire.
Sorry, I really just want to add on this because when I recommend photographers, I have a list of recommendations. I put links to their websites. Yeah. So I've got a photographer friend of mine who, when you search his name, his homepage image, I don't use that as the link because he's got a better image on the start of his galleries. So I link that link because I think it's a better picture.
Right, okay.
He might think differently, but I think that's a more engaging picture. And that's brilliant. It's so funny what you say. People, they're so quick to turn off. That first image they look at, certainly photography, has got to be killer, hasn't it?
I have one image at the start of my website, which is whole page. I don't have another one I'm happy to use. I have, out of 400 weddings I've shot, I have one image I'm happy to use on the front of my website because no other image I've taken quite resonates in that happy place.
Got to be that wow straight away, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to mention that. It's interesting.
I know this is us moving away from SEO. Wow, yes, but it's also got to be for your target market more importantly. Yes. So my first image on my website, the bride doesn't necessarily look at best. It's not a flattering picture of a bride.
Let's hope she didn't watch this episode.
No. She would agree if she was here as well.
It's appealing to the kind of people that want that.
It's a moment. It's a real thing that's happening. It's an over-the-top expression that some brides
it's
might see.
It's not a posed picture.
It's not a posed picture.
You're
definitely
capturing everything.
Because if I've got a bride looking for a photographer that wants to look like they're in Vogue or in a magazine, I'm not the photographer for them. They will be put off by that photo, and that's actually really good for me. So
you're targeting your market, aren't you? Absolutely. The sort of brides that you want
to shoot.
I'm the same. Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say, obviously, creating an engaging website to once they find you on Google to hook them in. But is it the case that once they do click on your website, the amount of time they then stay on your website that affects your ranking?
Yeah. So there's the three major areas to SEO that I cover on my workshop. Is first of all, you need to write great content that people love, but also Google loves. Okay. But you can create the best content possible and never rank, because you've then got to create what's called popularity. How popular is your content? So fantastically written content that Google loves and it's not popular will never rank. Crap content with fantastic popularity will rank. Does that make sense?
What do you mean by popularity?
So there's four factors of popularity. This is it gets really complicated.
Without going too
much. Okay.
Let's go down
just to bring it onto what you said, how long they spend on each page and how long they spend on your website overall is part of that popularity ranking.
Yeah. How engaging it is.
How engaging it is, and part of that also is something called bounce rate. So some people know what bounce rate is, some people doesn't.
Yes, in this term.
So the second that you go, I mean, if you Google something now and you went on a website, and then you kind of looked at it and then hit the back button to go back to Google, you just bounced on that website. You just told Google that you did not find that relevant. And they uses that information as part of this algorithm. So that's kind of part of this popularity algorithm. Right. And the third major aspect of SEO, by the way, is then authority, which is how much Google trusts you overall, which involves things like social media, backlinks for sure. And but then I'll also teach how popularity feeds into authority. Another way of seeing popularity is short-term authority. Maybe we're getting too in-depth here, I don't know, but it gets a bit complicated.
It does though, yeah.
But it's super, super interesting.
Before we get into the specifics then, a question I was wondering this morning was, in the age of like social media and specific in the last couple of years, specifically with Instagram Reels, TikTok, video content and all that, social media, has that changed the landscape of SEO? Or is it as important to do? Are people searching more on Instagram than they are Google? So
as far as I'm aware, it's impossible to know the search volume numbers in Instagram. How many people are searching for stuff in Instagram? You can find out the numbers in Google. So I'm going to take Manchester wedding photographer as an example because I know the numbers off the top of my head. About 5 years ago, 2,500 people per month were searching for that phrase. So that's that 80, 90 people a day were searching for that phrase, quite high. It has now dropped to 1,900 searches a month. Okay. Is that because less people? You
so
decide for yourself.
Because people are on Instagram
it's
more.
It's probably because people are now using Instagram more.
Yeah.
Now, it's still 1,900 people a month. That's a lot of searches. It's not like it's dropped to 500 or 100. You know what I mean? But people are definitely searching in Instagram more.
Well, sometimes you find it if you search for something. I mean, you tell me if I'm correct here, but I'm pretty sure that an Instagram profile will pop up on Google.
It can, but it rarely does for wedding suppliers.
So here's another question to add on to that then. How important is it to have your social media streams, if you like, on your website? Does that benefit your SEO? And does it work together?
You mean when you can see your Instagram feed live on your website?
So I've seen it on people's websites where it's got the last Instagram post is at the bottom maybe. Is that a good thing to do for SEO?
Some people disagree with me with this when I say this. Not because of an SEO, it's just from a business approach. My business approach is people find me on SEO, they find my website, they love me enough to then get in touch.
Yeah, okay.
I do not have any social media links on my website at all.
Okay.
Because the last thing I want them to do is go to my website, then go to Instagram. I want them to stay on my website.
Stay on your website, yeah.
It's good for SEO because the longer they spend on my website, the more Google thinks I'm relevant and therefore might rank me more. But also I think my website does a better job of selling myself as well than Instagram does because of the way I work.
Got it.
I use Instagram as, I phrase it as a secondary gallery. So after they've got in touch, the contact form we talked about before, it then takes them to a thank you to getting in touch page. Yeah. Oh, by the way, have you seen my Instagram? That's the first time and only time on my website I mention social media. Yeah. Because then rather than going off and looking for another photographer, I'd like to think they might click on that and then look at my Instagram and then.
Well, that's
see
good
more
because
photos.
once they've got in touch or even booked you,
Yeah.
then they can follow you and follow
Absolutely,
your journey and
yeah.
get to know you a bit more and
Yes,
stuff like that. So
yeah.
it makes sense, doesn't it?
So I had a couple around the other day who came around and they said, they come through the door. I said, Howard, we've seen everything. We've been on your YouTube, we've been on your Instagram, we've been on your Facebook, we've been on your website.
Stalked you.
We've seen you on YouTube, and I've not uploaded a YouTube video for probably years. So it does sometimes come from all over the place, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I like the way you're really taking them there. You want them to stay on your website, make that inquiry, and then you're going to send them to Instagram.
Absolutely.
To
And if
look
they want
at
to
your
find
stuff.
me on Instagram, they can search me on Instagram. I'll come up, just put Dave Stubbs in. I'll come come up straight away.
Yeah.
So it's still plenty relevant then, isn't it?
Yeah.
SEO.
But
Google.
a slightly different twist to this as well. Social media can really help your ranking in Google, because if you're popular in social media, Google thinks you're
Helps
also
your authority.
popular as well. It
Yeah.
helps. Yes, it can help authority. I call it more on the popularity side of
Okay.
things.
Yeah.
Okay. So it usually is via a link. It needs to be a link to your content. So, for example, if you posted a picture on Facebook and it got 1,000 likes, 100 shares, it would probably mean nothing to your site at all. But if you posted a link to a blog post or your homepage or your gallery and that got 1,000 likes, 100 shares, with those numbers, the popularity leading into authority would be amazing to your site.
On Google, yeah.
And, actually, shares is the big one here, by the way. I keep mentioning likes, but the number of what's called social shares is very, very important.
So is this if somebody shares your website?
So
They'll
sharing
search
content to your site.
Right. Oh, sharing content to your site. Okay.
So I'll give you an example. If I was to blog a wedding at Soundhole Oak Barn from a wedding I've shot, and that couple then share it to their wall or their feed.
Is your blog on your website,
My
attached
blog is
to your website?
part of my own
Right.
website, it's not separate.
It's viewable. Is it viewable on your website as well? Some people have a secret blog, don't they, which they use.
Well, I've done this. So I've got a blog, not that I post on it much, but it's not actually accessible anywhere from my website.
Right, I see.
So if you typed in the URL,
it would come up.
But you can't navigate to it on
but
my
it's
website.
still your domain name, though.
Yeah. So it's admin films for
so it's still
blog
part
or
of your
whatever.
website.
So it's still
it's
part
just
of
not
my
linked. It's just not
It's not
discoverable.
navigatable from the homepage because I didn't want people going on the blog because obviously blog posts, it's the newest one always appears at the top, and I didn't necessarily want them to see my newest wedding isn't necessarily my best.
But that's why I have a full or featured weddings page, which is actually visited a lot more than my blog pages.
Yeah.
So you have your best ones on that, and then your blog feeds just everything.
Yeah. So, but because I've hidden my blog in a sense,
Right.
but it's still there, would that affect SEO or not?
Not really, but
So I could still use it for SEO purposes.
It depends how you're using that blog. You see, I get more inquiries through venues through my blog posts than I do for ranking for Manchester Wedding Photographer, Lake District Wedding Photographer, and stuff like that. Whereas that's different for you because videographers don't search for venues as much.
Goes back to what you're getting searched for and what type of supply you're on. So what you're saying is the general search terms such as Manchester Wedding Photographer, that's to rank your homepage.
Yes.
Whereas when you're trying to SEO for a specific venue, that's linking to a blog post.
Absolutely. And then so that blog post becomes the entry point to my website.
Yeah.
But equally, that doesn't have to be linked. So my blog feed stops at 30 blog posts because I don't want them scrolling back to 2008 and it looking dreadful. You know what I mean? But I have a lot of venues that I'm ranking on page 1 for that are not. You can't see in those 30 because it stops. So they're still ranking high. So the fact that you are not linkable from your main site won't actually affect your ranking.
Got it.
When it comes to ranking for a wedding photographer, there's not much stuff that people search for. They will search for Manchester Wedding Photographer. They'll search for their venue. They might search for style, documentary wedding photographer.
And you say venue, I mean they'll search for Mittenhall Wedding Photographer.
Wedding photographer, and that's it.
So it's a regional thing. It's their venue.
Regional thing, a venue thing, maybe a style thing, but that's so minimal that you can almost ignore it. That's it. Finished. Yeah. So there's very little diversity in the search phrases they use. How many wedding photographers are there in Manchester?
Oh, hundreds.
More and more,
all the time.
And this is the reason why photography is SEO is so for photographers is so easy, because the setup, the structure, and the approach you have is very simple, just around 2 or 3 different phrases that they might search for. But it's bloody hard because you're then competing against hundreds of people with that one phrase.
Yeah, that 4-3 phrases or whatever. Yeah.
Pick Lancashire. Are we in Lancashire here?
Yes.
Yeah. How many wedding singers are there in Lancashire? Active wedding singers.
Probably more than you know. There's good. 5? We know of 4 or 5 good ones, but there's probably loads that you don't know about that aren't.
Yeah, but
aren't at that level.
actively trying to work in weddings though, like trying to 10.
Probably 10.
Right. So without even trying, you're on page 1.
Yeah. What your point is?
Exactly.
It's nowhere near the amount of photographers.
No, but you might have different phrases.
We did a course a few years ago about YouTube SEO. Do you remember?
Yeah. Well,
and we were learning about ranking of videos, but ranking them on Google.
We did do a course. You're right. Yeah. I was going to say it's in our videography course. There's a section I touch on YouTube SEO because I use it quite a lot. And when I was building my YouTube channel, it was a similar approach to Google. You find your search term that you want to be searched for, and you learn which one's best by using different softwares and stuff. And then you're trying to rank for that search term. And I'm titling my video in a certain way and writing my descriptions
and hashtags
so,
on the video.
We did a course to learn about all these best practices and stuff, didn't we?
Yeah, and it worked, didn't it?
And it does work. And I know this isn't really kind of your area of what you do, but we talked about this with Neil on the last one, Neil Redfern, about when you rank for YouTube and you've got a video there, it then translates over to Google as well.
Yes.
So, and I don't know if it's the case that Google needs to put X amount of videos on page 1,
not
but
always,
generally when you search for something, they're putting videos there. So maybe you've got a better chance of ranking under a video than you have of ranking for a blog post.
Which
if you're a photographer and it's super competitive,
absolutely,
it's a way to stand
that's definitely
out.
A good way to do it. Now, I imagine what you learnt about those ranking on YouTube would work well if there's 10 different people doing that and trying to rank on YouTube.
Yeah.
If you took 400 photographers trying to rank for a phrase on YouTube, then suddenly those hints and tips you learnt wouldn't work so much anymore.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
because
it becomes a lot
harder.
Yeah.
I don't have much to say about YouTube.
No, that's fine.
No, it's just it's just an extra side to your SEO because you can do it with video. And we did it last. We did the live test, didn't we? Last time I put in Mittenhall wedding singer, and my video was there on Google. And it was great to see that. Whether it gets me any work or not, I don't know. Probably not. But
you say that.
It ties into it.
This all, I'm a big advocate of YouTube SEO specifically because I rank for a few different videos, search terms, and I've got a few videos that rank highly, and I've got bookings directly from people that found me on YouTube because they've searched for that specific thing. So it does there's work. A video, if you type in Scottish wedding video or even Scottish wedding, which is a really broad if you were to Google that's a broad broad phrase. It's less broad on YouTube, there's less searches, but it's a broad phrase, and I'm top 3 videos, or I was last time I checked. And my video was called Scottish Highlands wedding video or something was the search term, Scottish Highlands specifically. But it's done that well that even if you just search for Scottish wedding it comes up. And I had an inquiry for a couple in LA that were thinking about eloping to Scotland. They were searching on YouTube, they found my video, and then they changed their mind and actually no, we're going to stay in LA, but we're still wondering if you'd come over. And then COVID happened and it didn't work out.
What a shame.
That would have been a brilliant success story.
I've shot a wedding in LA actually, so
amazing.
It's a shame.
I was gutted, but I've had other bookings for weddings in Scotland that have come from that thing, and I think for videographers, couples do search for their videographers on YouTube because they're like, well, it's video, they'll be on YouTube. I'll search there.
Whereas less so for photographers.
Anyway, but it's a great thing that obviously we talk about a lot, and I talk about on my YouTube channel. And I know it's not what you do, but that's a little side shoot to SEO.
Again, it's just something else. We always try and find, and we say this to our other students, there's so much competition within the wedding industry for certain niches. What can you do that's going to make you stand out? Or what can you do that nobody else is doing? Or what can you do better than other people are doing? And it's finding those little nuggets to try and prop up your business.
But I think being found through different avenues will help as well, because when I first started out, like 2007, something like that, I was still reading wedding photography books that were saying that you need to advertise in these magazines and they need to see it 6 times before they might remember you and stuff like that. The old school print advertising. But isn't that still relevant today? If they find you in Google and then they find you on Instagram and then they YouTube something and they find you again and the venue recommends you, surely that's going to be like, well, this might be the person
so if you're in as many places as possible.
As many places as possible. The only thing about that is then you're spreading yourself very thinly when you're working hard.
You know what I mean?
So people say you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket, but I kind of do with my SEO because I kind of dismiss everything else and just go for that quite
You do,
well.
but within that, you're ranking for so many different places and search terms, and you're trying to spread yourself wide that way, but within that one marketing thing. So you still, although you're only doing one marketing thing versus networking versus social media, you're still doing a lot within SEO, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So if you, for any type of wedding supplier that wants to get into SEO and they're at the start of the business or the journey or whatever, what do they need? Obviously, they need a website.
Clearly.
What do you do? What do you do first? So we've talked a lot about search terms. So
the very first thing must be to do what's called keyword research. Now, I those who I work with, I hate the phrase keyword, but let's not go into that now. You've got to find out what people are going to find you through. And for photographers, that's super easy. They're going to look for location, Manchester, Cheshire, Lancashire. They're going to look for their venue. They get married at Mitten Hall wedding photographer. They might search for style, like we're looking for a relaxed documentary
wedding photographer.
And from a photo point of view, which I'm very rehearsed about, that's the extent of what people really search for. So my SEO strategy is unbelievably easy. My homepage ranks for Manchester wedding photographer, which I get found quite a lot through.
Yeah.
And I could have more, but I don't because of time reasons. I prefer to play football with my kids than just keep working on SEO. But I have about 120 blog posts ranking page 1 for maybe 100 venues, 80 venues at worst.
Wow.
And that's how I work.
Pretty good considering you're prioritising your time playing with the kids.
Yes,
you're still doing the work.
Yes, but a lot of that content and the time it created to do that was done before kids, or when the kids were young. I've just got to maintain it now. Okay, so I haven't really created much new content over the last few years, but that might be different for a singer. For example, do they search for Lancashire wedding singer, Lancashire wedding entertainment? This is where my knowledge on it.
Is there a couple of places that you can do your keyword research? Like what
Uber
tools
Suggest.
do you use?
I'll say that right now. Uber Suggest, like the taxi firm. Uber Suggest by a guy called Neil Patel.
Is it part of Uber?
No, it's not.
Oh,
no,
right, okay.
It's just the same word.
Right. I was going to say, go Uber.
They're diversified, No, it's a website that they're going to encourage you to sign up and stuff like that and pay monthly for. I don't pay a penny to them. I just use their free search volume to do
Uber
Suggest.
So that's the one you'd recommend?
That's the one I recommend. Just because it's
Google
free and
Analytics
easy. Google Analytics will tell you stuff, but actually, the Google's point of view is called Google Keyword Planner.
That's the one.
And the only way you can access that is if you're paying AdWords. Because the purpose of the keyword planner is to help you maintain your AdWord campaign.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So
when I first started doing SEO, you didn't have to be paying AdWords at all. You can just use it for free, and now they've got
I was going to say I used to use it.
And now,
where they can make money, they will do eventually.
Absolutely. That will probably give you more accurate results and more extensive results. But Uber Suggest is the only.
So if you don't want to spend money, and you don't have to, clearly,
I don't spend a penny. Oh, in fact, that's not true. I have an app on my phone called SEO Edge. But
so at the start, then. Get
Uber
your website,
Suggests.
go on Uber Suggest, you've got your keywords, you're building your website. I imagine you find the most relevant keywords you think you're going to be found under and try and incorporate them into your website or homepage.
So usually for a homepage you'd need to target, and I can't go into the complexities of this right now, but you would target one major phrase, the biggest phrase.
Is this in the back end or is this in the description or titles?
So this is where it gets far more complicated. And it's really hard
you've got a back end of keywords you can use, haven't you? And then also description.
So it's more just straight up front what's at the front of your
on the
website.
description. Okay.
So your content needs to be set out in a way that Google understands. You need a title, you need subheadings, you need your general paragraph content, and then it needs to be set out accordingly like that. But then this is where it's hard for me to explain exactly what to do, because it takes me an hour to explain how to write that out when I'm doing my workshop. So that's very difficult. But you need to, first of all, you need to choose the one major phrase that someone searches for. For me, that's Manchester wedding photographer. Okay. Yeah. I have then created a homepage all about Manchester wedding photography. Okay. And then Google thinks that I deserve to rank high. I'm relevant to the people searching for that. Yeah. Does that make sense?
How long does it take for Google to kick in and
realise? That totally
depends
on the popularity or authority factors. Okay. So for example, I worked with someone in New York City, or NYC, which was the same thing in Google, and they were on page 4. But this was a multi-award winning, some people would argue top 20 wedding photographers in the world guy, and he changed his content on his site and he went to page 1, number 3 spot in about 2 weeks.
Right, so it can happen quite quick.
Yeah. Very, very quick. But he already had a lot of the popularity and authority in place. Yeah. Whereas somebody...
So Google are fast-tracking him because he's already good.
He's already good, he's already trusted, he's already loved. He just didn't have his content in place. Whereas when I in March, I worked with someone who set up their website in January, just 2 months earlier. And I'm telling them, realistically, this is a 2 to 3 year goal. For a wedding photographer, Yeah. Now, I'm saying photographer specifically because it's so competitive and you've got a lot of competition. However, as we've just mentioned a minute ago, there might only be 10 wedding singers in Lancashire, and actually you only have to do the basics to get onto page 1.
Yeah,
because you're only competing against 9 other people.
Live test.
Well, while you're doing that, to go back to the Uber suggests, was it?
Yes.
Will that tell you how? So if you're a florist or a makeup artist doing these searches, will it tell you how competitive your market is?
So if you're a florist in Manchester, you might search for Manchester wedding florist, and it will tell you exactly how many people per month search for that phrase.
Good. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Go on then.
Right, so I've just put in wedding singer Lancashire.
Are you searching incognito?
Just wedding singer Lancashire.
Right, so this is a good tip. So
sorry, go
for
on.
anyone listening, if you're searching on Google, obviously now it uses bases it on your location and your previous history and stuff like that.
It remembers what websites you've been on before. It knows your social
So if you want to do a real,
it knows your age. I know that it even comes into a factor.
So if you really want to test it,
when you see incognito, then as if.
So are you in Google Chrome here? Or
It's just on Google.
Safari.
You're on Safari. This is why I use Google Chrome because I find it easier. On
Yeah.
Google Chrome, you can open up a new tab and go to New Incognito window. You can do it on Safari.
So that's completely. It's not taking all the cookies and everything else.
Everything except your location. So your location still
applies
in incognito.
But to get the best,
but it gives you a true reflection.
The truest
of where you're
reflection of.
So you might search Howard Lancashire wedding singer, and you go, "Oh, I'm ranking number 1." That's probably only because you've been on your own website several times.
No, I never got.
Well, you might.
Yeah, but your location is exactly where your website is, and you will have clicked on it enough in the past.
So if you went your last episode, Neil Redfern, if you went onto Neil Redfern's website and you Google Manchester wedding photographer, he's more likely to rank higher for you because you've been on his website before.
So what you want to do to get a true test is turn all that off, go incognito, so that you can actually find out how well you rank.
And it tells you
from a neutral point of view.
From a neutral point of view, that's a good way of explaining it.
I'm just nowhere near, and it's been such a long time since I've done
this is probably because...
It doesn't matter to me, but it's still interesting to know that I'm nowhere near.
It doesn't matter to you because your work doesn't come from SEO. So you don't need to start titling your homepage Lancashire wedding singer. In fact, you probably wouldn't want to do that because you probably do just as many weddings in Manchester, Cheshire, Wales and up and down the country.
Oh, I've come up eventually.
Oh, right, you're there.
Right at the bottom. In fact, in the next set of search, so that'll be page 2, won't it?
I imagine, Howard, with a small tweak of your content, you'd go straight to the very near top of page 1.
And listen, this is the difference between my business and probably your business. Yeah. I don't want to be found as a person who doesn't know me, never seen me, going onto Google and putting in wedding singer Lancashire. I don't want that person.
Yeah, what you do is very different.
Yeah, because my service is so personal. I want people to have seen me or been recommended, and that's where the journey begins.
Yeah.
And my sort of business expertise, if you like, is what happens from there. Meeting my couples, having that chat with them. You know, I love it when I get a couple through the door here. It's great. I've got a 99% rate of somebody booking me when they come to the house.
Whereas SEO, that's completely different. So just make that clear now, because I get a lot of tire-kicking inquiries. I don't have prices.
You still get a lot,
yeah. That's if you're ranking really well, you're going to get a lot of volume, aren't you?
Getting in touch, a lot of volume, a lot of traffic, a lot of people getting in touch. But you say 99% success rate. I get. It has gone down since COVID a little bit, but I would say I'm getting about 3 inquiries a day on average, something like that.
Yeah.
And
that's brilliant, though, isn't it?
But that's 3 emails a day I'm sending off, and I probably get 1 or 2 emails back a week saying, "Oh, we can find out more."
Yes.
Probably because
it's always a numbers game.
It's a numbers game, and mainly because I'm too expensive for 80-90% of the people who get in touch.
Yeah. But there's the argument for prices on your website versus off and all that kind of stuff. But
I'm a big advocate for off, but I don't know if you want to go into that.
No, I am too. But for me, it's surely you would rather. People say, "Oh, you're spending all that time like replying to people that are never going to book you," but it's like a couple of emails a day, isn't it? Do you know
it's not. Yeah, especially
it's nothing.
template.
So wouldn't you rather have the inquiries coming in and that maybe have a chance of converting them than not coming at all?
Volume is really important. Certainly when you charge what you charge.
We're getting off the topic.
I'm not that expensive. I charge £2,500 for a day's photography, no album, just my coverage time photos. Okay, but my wedding business, my website, and everything is not structured for couples who have a £2,500 budget. It's structured for couples who have a £1,500 to £2,000 budget, and then want to spend more on me once they fall in love with my website and my work. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's kind of when I do my website. That's the mindset I have, because most people who use Google looking for a photographer would have a £1,500 budget in mind, not a £2.5 grand budget.
The people with
mind.
big budgets probably aren't going through Google, are they?
Those people who have £5 grand budget in mind are never going to go anywhere near Google for
planners
looking for
and things
planners,
like that.
posh venue recommendation only.
I love them I love those couples who I know it's been a bit of a stretch for them to get me, but they just appreciate a bit more sometimes.
I photograph weddings from a third of the wedding budget. And I'm just like, I just love it. It's such an honour. You know what I mean? I've never worked harder than those couples as well.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. And like you say, the couples that are Googling that have those kind of budgets, but you're just beyond that, so it's a bit of a luxury, but they're willing to do it because they're falling in love.
They value what they do.
When you turn up, you're so appreciated. It's great.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about you said about the popularity and that good piece of content. We find now that people don't. If you fill your homepage, your website with loads of text, people just don't read it.
No.
So even though it's filled with all the great keywords, you're going to get that ranking for. It's how do you get them to stay and read it, because they're just going to bounce off it if they're bored, aren't they, straight away? So is it getting the balance between the popularity content, the keywords? You keep it shorter and maybe have some images or for your homepage.
Well, here's a question. Going back to you found your search term. You're trying to apply it to your website, to your homepage, and you're trying to include your search term in your text so that it gets ranked. Does there need to be a balance between how often you use that or how you use it? Because it still needs to be readable, and you don't want to sound like a robot. I am a Manchester wedding photographer and I provide Manchester wedding photography.
So that's a big mistake actually with SEO, and one of the reasons why I refuse to talk about keywords when I teach SEO actually is because you see a keyword phrase as Manchester wedding photography, you need to repeat that phrase so many times, and actually that can be bad for SEO.
Google's sophisticated enough to know that now.
Google's sophisticated to know that. So I actually call it topic words. You're writing about a topic. So if you're writing about Manchester wedding photography, it doesn't matter if you say Manchester wedding photography, wedding photographers in Manchester, people based in Manchester that take photos at weddings, it's all the same thing. Yeah. And actually, if you were to use different phrases in that way, it's all supporting of how relevant you are for a wider phrase like Manchester wedding photographer. So for example, and I use my Lake District post as the example when I'm teaching my SEO. My Lake District post about Lake District wedding photography.
So this is a blog post.
But it's the same. It doesn't matter. It's the same applies to a homepage or anywhere else. It just so happens to be a blog post.
Yeah.
I've written 1,600 words. Right. It's a lot of words. How many times do you think I've used the phrase Lake District wedding photographer in 1,600 words? Any ideas?
Go on.
See, I'd be like, you must have done it about 10 times.
If you use something like Yoast SEO or Help, it's 14 times that recommends.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Yoast because I've used that in the past.
I have the word in there twice in 1,600 words.
So that's a myth then that you need to use it loads.
Complete myth also, but I do have a lot of topic words. I use the phrases Lake District wedding and photographer in there, but not Lake District wedding photographer. It's verified. Yeah, and you've got different variations of those words.
So you're splitting that search term up and using it within your post?
Intentionally, using words like Lakeland instead of Lake District.
Could you even put in like Windermere? Because
that's different to what you would know as keyword phrases. That's slightly different, which we can go into that in a minute, but that's going down a different direction. But Windermere can help, but for a different reason. Okay. Howard, what did you mention before a minute ago? You said
images
about
and stuff, mixing it up.
About how much content you write, basically.
Yeah, because we know, don't we, that people go onto a website and you've got so many seconds to keep their attention, and if it's just text and blurb, no one's going to read it all.
One of the things I talk about a lot is that you've got something called user experience. That's an actual real-life bride and groom coming to your website. You'll want to convince them to get in touch and book you. And then you've got to also be appealing to Google. And actually, for most industries, certainly for photographers, they combat each other. Because whether you like it or not, Google likes a lot of content. Because you are writing meaningful stuff about the thing that they're searching for.
So Google likes that.
But bride and
you don't want it to be wordy.
You don't want. Why have I put 1,600 words on a blog post? No bride and groom's going to read that in a million years.
Yeah.
But the point is, this is where it makes it easier for photographers specifically.
They'll find you.
Read it. They find me.
Yeah.
And what do they look when they come? Adam
and I talked about this.
When they come to my website, Howard, What is a bride and groom looking for?
They're looking for a wedding
No.
photographer.
What are they looking to see? Sorry, on my website.
Great images.
Images. That's it. That's all they care about. They don't care about all that text. So I have.
But you need it. You need it there.
You need it there.
Yeah.
I have it there for Google to love it.
Yeah.
But what's the first thing they see on any of my content? What's the first thing they see?
And
Big
a killer image. Yeah.
Killer image.
So you've got the image, and then you've got all the.
Then I've got text.
Do you
and
think
then I've
that,
got images.
So you don't
and then
think
I've got
that
text.
puts them off seeing all that text?
In an ideal world, I'd have 50 words on my Lake District post. I shoot weddings in the Lake District.
Yeah.
I work in a documentary or natural style of photography. I got married in the lakes, so I get how great the lakes is.
Yeah.
No additional travel costs for the Lake District. That's it. That's all I need them to know.
Yeah.
No other text matters.
Doesn't work for Google though.
No, Google would never rank it in a million years because I haven't written relevant content that Google will love to outrank the other 100 photographers trying to rank for Lake District wedding photographer.
Yeah.
So 1,550 words I have written is only there for Google, but it doesn't put bride and grooms off because they are distracted by the beautiful photos.
Yeah, and you can lay it out
Perfect.
in a way, so you break it up, paragraph here, then more
Absolutely,
images, then
and that's
another paragraph.
exactly what I do.
Yeah.
And if they really did make the effort to read it, they must be so invested in me as their photographer to make
Well, if
the
they're
effort
going to read
do
it,
that.
then they're probably booking you, aren't they?
They're probably
'Cause
booking
They're
you.
well into it.
The reason you do it is so you can be found under it, and then they might read a bit of it, and then they're going to investigate more on you and go on your homepage and see your amazing images and bosh.
So a good blog post has all that. Do you recommend about that many words? Like
So
1,500
I
or
get
something?
asked all the time, how many words should you write? Okay, and it's a very difficult question to answer actually because 1,000 words will be perceived as more relevant than 200 words. Okay,
Yeah.
but 200 words of quality content would be perceived as more relevant than 1,000 words of waffle.
Yeah. So
what goes into
that's that
but then-
popularity thing again. Is it?
Oh, no,
Or-
quality content, it's deemed how Google is judging it from a quality point of view. Is this a good standard of quality content?
How do they know? How does Google know that it's
spelling
quality?
mistakes,
Though?
things like that?
So
Is that what you
Google
mean?
it's in two ways. It's known because it's literally written into the algorithm. It's looking for certain things. Yeah. Because I'm trying to think of an example. If you were to pick up a medical journal, right? Not that I bet you never have. I never have. But if you picked up a medical journal about some disease and you were reading a journal article about a disease, can you imagine how that article was written?
Yeah.
A medical professional writing about
Proper boring.
Oh my god, it probably is.
Well,
but can you imagine
very
the terminology?
sciencey.
Can you imagine the words used, the variety, the complexity, right? Well, that is quality content.
Yeah.
Google is looking for the same thing. Just because I'm a wedding photographer, it doesn't mean you want to just write crap.
Yeah.
Google's looking for meaningful, relevant content that is informative to the person searching for it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that is a very broad explanation of what quality content looks like. And when I'm talking about this, I go into specifics of actually how to do that. Varying your keyword phrase, I hate that phrase, but is part of that. Not writing Manchester Winter, because that is not quality content at all. Yeah.
Right. So that's
That's
actually
clear.
a bad practice.
That's
to do,
bad
yeah.
practice,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, but you still need that phrase. And then the one more thing I can bring up now, actually, which might help people, is you brought up Windermere before when I was talking about the Lake District. Why do you think Windermere is helpful for a relevant word to use in a post about the Lake District?
Because it's in the Lake District.
Because it's in the Lake District. Google knows that is relevant content.
Yeah.
Because if you have mentioned Windermere in your content, you must be knowledgeable about your topic of the Lake District. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, but it's not linked to a keyword phrase. Yeah,
it's
but
not part of the keyword phrase,
No.
but it's still related. So Google knows that because it's clever.
This is known as contextual words or niche vocabulary.
Yeah.
Okay. So, for example, in my Lake District post, I mentioned, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, if I haven't used these words, they would still work. Mountains, terrain, views, tourism, holidays, hotels.
Like that. It could be relevant, related.
Rain.
Always rain in the
Weather.
Lake District.
Yeah? All those words are relevant to the Lake
Grassmere
District.
shortbread, gingerbread, even.
Oh,
Yeah. All those phrases. Hang on, that's slightly different actually. I'll come back to that in a minute. I purposely use words that could have also described the Grand Canyon, right, and the Rocky Mountains and other places in the world.
Yeah, but it's because you've put it under the banner of Lake District.
Yes. So Google thinks that I know I don't want to swear because I told my kids I was going to be on this. So I know my stuff about the Lake District, right?
Yeah.
But then you've got the next level up called niche vocabulary. Grassmere, that's why I pulled you up on that, because Grassmere shortbread or gingerbread, it's very specific to the Lake District. Nowhere else in the world do you find Grassmere gingerbread.
Yeah.
So I haven't, and I could have done, I could have used Grassmere gingerbread in my post, because then Google goes, oh, he really knows.
He knows what's going on in this
area. So I
area.
mentioned Beatrix Potter, William Wordsworth, Keswick, Windermere, and other places that are highly specific to the Lake District. So Google thinks I'm very high quality information about the Lake District.
So rather than
that's
just
easy.
using...
Sorry, can I just say one thing?
Go.
This is easy about the Lake District, but you try and do that about Mitten Hall. And try and do it about Sandhollow Barn and places like that.
One specific venue.
So I do a lot of keyword research. Theme word research. I didn't mean to say keyword research. I do a lot of theme. So I will look at the venue's website. I'll look at other photographers' blog posts about Mitten Hall, and it's not a National Trust place, but if it was a venue, it was a national. I'll look at National Trust stuff, English heritage stuff, and I will do so much research.
So if you're going for a specific venue, you need to really work out stuff that's relevant to that venue.
And I go as far as this. You both know Eves Hall.
Yes.
What does the word Eve mean? Eaves.
Eaves.
As in like eavesdropping.
Eaves in a roof.
Eaves in a roof.
Eaves in a roof.
Yeah.
So I mention a roof in my blog post. I mention slate and things like that, because if I mention slate and roofs in my blog post, Google thinks I know my stuff about Eves Hall. And I'll think,
even though it's a totally different...
But it's just an add-on to the other stuff I'm
doing.
Okay.
Because nobody... Like, I would have never thought to do that.
No.
And you wouldn't, like... Why would you talk about roofs in a post about...
And then coming back to what we were saying before, someone else listening to this or watching this will be like going, well, how is that relevant to bride and grooms? Well, it's not. I'm pleasing Google. They're distracted by the
pleasing
Google
photos, so that they
they're
find
just looking
the
at
link,
that
they click it, and then once they're in,
they love my photos. They do not start reading my stuff about Eves Hall. Instead, they go to my portfolio or my homepage or my gallery, my about page instead.
Makes total sense.
It's so good, isn't it? I bet you could see a high-ranking blog post for a search term, and you could read it, and you'd be able to pinpoint exactly why it's there.
I can read it, and I can tell you if it's good or not straight away.
But you know which that's because of that word, and it's because of that word.
You could read a page and know if the person that's made that knows the stuff or not.
Yeah, and then how's that any different to Google reading it and knowing whether it's good or not? It's not very different at all.
So you mentioned,
but you could. Sorry, Adam. I know you've done. You could ask me all that. You could do all of that and still not rank, because writing the content is only a third of SEO, as I said before.
Yeah, and then it's
the popularity, the authority that has to then come from that too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't. The worst thing I find in SEO that people come to me all the time is, I've done amazing SEO. I even had somebody write in I think it was a video group actually. Someone sent me a screen grab secretly, saying that I've copied what David Stubbs has done on his Lake District post from my homepage, and I don't rank anywhere. How come his blog post ranks on like page 1?
So someone's copied and pasted your blog.
Not copied and pasted, but done the same, replicated it.
Written it slightly differently.
Strong inspiration from it, okay? And then wondering why they didn't rank at all.
Why?
Well, because they were not looking at the other 2/3, popularity and authority. This is just a third of it. Okay. So that's
well, on the authority then, backlinks.
Backlinks is huge in SEO. Whether people always question about how important backlinks are. Backlinks have always been important, always will be important, because it's a very easy way for Google to determine if your website is important in the grand scheme of the web.
And where they come from, I imagine, as well.
What a backlink is then.
A backlink is when another website mentions you or links to your website. It's as simple as that. The bigger, the better the website, the more juice you get from them. The more relevant the website, as in if they were talking about wedding photography, for example, then that more juice you get from
this
that.
Is a lot of listeners, an example that people will resonate with is, as a wedding supplier, you might have a page saying, my recommended friends. And then you link a florist, a DJ, a videographer. So anyone that's linked to your site, that's a backlink.
That is good, but you're getting backlinks from people who are relatively the same pond as you. And with all respect to wedding suppliers, most wedding suppliers are a pretty small pond compared to big websites.
So what you want is a big, respectable website to backlink. Like, for example, I'm linked on a blog post on Vogue.
Amazing.
Amazing. So that would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, the older that link gets, the less juice you get from it, unless they revamp that page and that link. But absolutely, I don't know what Vogue's rating is or domain authority
Must be
is.
pretty good.
It's going to be pretty good.
Because we do it, don't we? We always would have thought that to be on as many friends pages on their websites within the wedding industry, it's giving you an extra link. But unless that website is massive,
that one Vogue link
really
will
matter.
outrank 100 of those.
Yeah, there you go.
Because it's
More
Vogue.
Yeah.
So I think the takeaway from that is find out which website is the best and the most best performing, and try and get a link on that.
Google says this should just happen without you trying anything. You shouldn't do anything, because if you just run an amazing business, people are naturally going to want links to you. And did you purposely get that link from Vogue because you thought I want SEO juice, or did it link come from just running a good business?
Vogue did a blog about a wedding, and I just happened to be on it, and they linked me.
And if you were a terrible videographer, that wouldn't have happened.
No, because I wouldn't have been on that.
No,
wedding.
you wouldn't have been on it.
Yeah.
That's my point. You know what I mean? So running a good business is led to that. Okay, so it does happen naturally, but you can also be proactive.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the Wedding Industry Awards.
Yes.
Obviously, you enter that, you're on their directory, you're linked back. I don't know how good their site is, but it's something you can do.
Can I tell you my biggest secret on this, I guess, is that it's wedding venues that I work the hardest on this. Now, it's not as big a backlinks as Vogue, and I've got backlinks from Sony and Petty Pixel and Metro News and all sorts of different places which have high authority, but it's venues that I'm active or proactively working on.
Yeah,
and
because they're like attainable, aren't they? Maybe
they're attainable,
but still
yes,
pretty good.
But if you get a backlink from a venue's website, it doesn't go out of date. Well, your Vogue link will go out of date eventually. 5 years down the line, you might as well just not have it anymore, unless you get a new one.
Because it's not being read anymore.
It's not been read anymore. No one cares about
but
it anymore.
venues,
It's
people
gone.
are all a busy wedding venue. People are always on the website.
It's always on the website, always looked at, always there. And the second benefit of that is that if they find you in Google and then you're on the venue's website, or link or a picture, then that's like we talked about before, the being seen 6 times in like old-fashioned print advertising. Then they're more likely to.
Plus, it's a relevant topic. Like, you're a wedding photographer,
well,
you're linked on a wedding venue.
Yeah.
Like, does that?
Yeah. So, for example, Statham Lodge. You've done Statham Lodge.
Yeah, Warrington.
Yeah. I think I did a wedding with you there actually. They've had pictures on their homepage with a backlink from their homepage to my website for about 8 years. Something like that, and only about 2 months ago they changed their website and not there anymore. So that backlink is now gone. Now, if I wanted, I don't know if I'm going to go to this effort, but I can contact them again and say, look, maybe they don't want my old photos. Those photos have been there for ages. I can provide them with a new
media
photo.
suppliers.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose if people change their websites and you've got them links there, they're gone, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they might be really good for you.
Yeah.
You could even work out how many inquiries they've led to and how many bookings they've led to. It's like, wow, that gave me an extra 5 bookings a year. I need to get back on there again, and then you'd approach them, I suppose.
We talk about this is maintain, like, watering your seeds and getting in with those venues and maintaining those relationships, but in this case maintaining your links.
So maybe this is another reason why I got into SEO as well, because when I started my career I definitely tried to get in with venues, talk to them, got recommended by them, and then the wedding supplier changes and it's gone.
How true is that?
1 week they could meet a new person and they're fresher in the mind, so they start recommending you, and all of a sudden, with the best intentions in the world, you start falling down.
So people say SEO is a lot of work, which it can be, but I felt like that type of networking was a lot of work as well, and not the type of, I enjoyed SEO more than that side of things, and that's probably why I've led to not caring about venues. I do recommend it by some venues, but just going with SEO now.
This leads into the next question of how do you maintain your blog posts and your rankings over time? Is the things that you have to do to keep on top of it?
Yes, so what will happen is Google, one of the big factors of SEO, Google likes up-to-date content, stuff that's new and relevant. Okay, if you were to Google the phrase Wimbledon right now, right, what's going to appear on your phones?
Yeah.
Now you might be thinking, I can't remember, is that Alcaraz? Well, whoever
Alcaraz,
won it,
Alcaraz, we called
it. So you might be thinking there might be articles about him winning this on Sunday, right? But what day are we on today? Is it Tuesday?
Tuesday.
I promise you, if you Googled Wimbledon now, all the articles have been written this morning.
Okay.
That's how big a deal Wimbledon is right now, that an article written 2 days ago when he won Wimbledon is now out of date and irrelevant.
Right.
Only stuff written this morning will be relevant.
Goes back to the Vogue link that
absolutely.
Adam.
But even though we are not that same levels of Wimbledon popularity, clearly it's still relevant to the wedding industry.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I was to blog a wedding about Mitten Hall wedding photography, it ranks number 1. Great. A 2-year period passes and 50 photographers blog Mitten Hall wedding photography in that 2 period after me. Why the hell would I deserve to be number 1 still when there's 50 newer, fresher blog posts?
The more recent ones
about Mitten Hall.
Have got a better chance.
It's not all. Yeah, a better chance is the best phrase. It's not just whoever does it recent is first. It's not quite that, but it gives it a better chance. So my blog posts go out of date, and one of the reasons why, and I talk about this a lot on my course. You will Google venues and you'll see David's on page 2 for something. Well, I thought he was good at SEO. Why is he on page 2? It's because I've just neglected that post. I haven't gone to the effort of revamping it. It was written 3 years ago. Now, if I went in and revamped it or updated it, those blog posts can then shoot back up again.
Yeah.
So how do you do that?
So, images and photos. So for me, I delete a couple of images, add in a couple of new images. Okay? I delete some of the text, I write in some new text, so the text is longer than it was before. I'm not sure how important that is, but that's how I do that. And then I resubmit it to Google, update it on my WordPress, and then there's something else we'll talk about in a minute. Remind me to come back to your Search Console. This could be a good thing for the listeners.
Search Console.
Come back to that in a minute. Right. Okay. Could have started with that actually. Anyway, so then what happens is that often it will go up again. So for example, my Lake District blog post, if you went on my blog post now and had a look, it will say it was written in January 2023. That was actually the last time I updated it. It was actually first written in 2014. It's 9 years.
So because you've gone in and updated it,
I re-put the new date on. So the history of my, there's more to this story actually, but there's more. The history of my Lake District blog post is it ranked number 1, it drops. I update it, it goes up again, it drops. I update it, goes up again, it drops.
So you just got to keep doing that.
And my SEO life is spent updating content, not writing new content. Yeah,
makes sense. Right, let's pull it back from what you just said. Search Console.
So we could have started with this.
What is a Search Console?
So Google provides you.
I'll re-edit everything, put it at the front.
Google provides you with a platform to manage your website through Google, and it was formerly known as Google Webmaster Tools, which some people still reference it as. But it's now, we heard of that, but it's now called Google Search Console. Okay. Right. Google wants 2 things from you. The first thing is, are you a real person with a real website, not a bot? So you need to put your website in and then verify it. How you verify it, it depends on your website, and it gives you clear instructions on how to verify it. Basically proving you are the owner of that website.
Yeah.
Otherwise you could just do it to other people's, couldn't you? It comes with putting a bit of code in the back end. Google knows you're real. Next, it needs a sitemap. Okay? So if you went to the zoo, we're Blackpool Zoo now.
Yeah.
If you went to Blackpool Zoo, you may have been with the kids recently, I don't know. Okay? Go to Blackpool Zoo, you know what's at the zoo. But if 2-year period passes and you go back to the zoo, you go, I can't remember what's at the zoo. What's the quickest and easiest way to know what's at the zoo? Someone gives you a map. Well, you need to give Google a map. It's a massive misconception that Google crawls your website. It goes to your website, it goes to every page, every post, and looks at it all. That rarely happens. Google comes to your sitemap and looks at your map. And if you haven't given Google a map in your Search Console, you're very unlikely to ever rank well at all.
Wow.
Do you have to actively do this yourself?
You have to actively do this yourself.
Because I've not got one of them then.
So you have to create the map so Google knows where to look?
Your website has a map.
Okay.
Automatically. You just need to point Google
so it automatically has one.
You automatically have a map. You just need to point Google in the direction of where your map is.
Right.
And
okay.
I can't tell you how to do that because that depends on your website. But again, very easy
I'm
instructions.
with WordPress for my site.
Again, it depends. It depends.
Well,
it doesn't even.
The fact that I've got no idea what that is means that I probably don't have Google links.
Most people I've worked with who have said that they have no idea what this is still already have it in place because somebody did it for them, or it was done years ago, or it was part of Google.
Okay,
do you have Google Analytics?
Yeah.
You probably have Google Search Console as well. It's almost the same thing.
Right.
Okay, but this is, out of all of SEO, this is one of the only things you must do. Yeah.
So this is a good start.
So this is where we should have started.
There was a question I was going to ask you towards the end of what's the first thing that you would do if you were starting again tomorrow.
First thing again is your Search Console.
So that's the biggest tip, is you need one of them.
That's a need thing. Okay. Yeah, I've worked with people in the past who have been ranking on page 3 or 4 for something and not doing too great, and they haven't done their Search Console. They did it and they went up 2 pages overnight.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But 90% of the community have done it. It's not a big thing, but make sure you've done it. You probably have it. Even I'm pretty confident you have it.
Okay, but what people should be doing is going and checking, because if they haven't got it, they're missing out big time.
In there, you will also find other tools and things to help you. I don't use any of it. They're the only 2 things I do: verify your website, make sure a sitemap is submitted, and that is it.
Cool. So if you're not running your own website, you need to contact the person who does your website and just double check these certain things.
Just double check that they have.
Yeah, because not everyone's going to have the technical know-how to do it. But
no, it is as easy as anything website goes. To be honest with you,
so you could get in touch with your web guy and he should know what he's doing with that.
Have we got a sitemap? Bosh.
Yeah, it's a 10-minute job for somebody, so don't let them charge you for 3 hours work.
Nice.
No, that's the best tip of the whole podcast.
I was going to ask about AI because obviously with the emergence of that, and we talked about this on the last episode with Neil.
Yeah.
I could say to you, well, ChatGPT, an AI platform, I could tell it to write me a blog post now with a specific search term, and it would do it.
It would do an okay job.
Is that something that people could do, or is it good enough?
Google wants real, genuine, helpful answers to the questions people ask in Google. Like, genuinely helpful, okay? That is the ultimate goal of what Google's looking for in quality content, okay?
Yeah, so I'm looking for a Manchester wedding photographer.
It is Google has said outright that they dislike AI content because it's not real, genuine, meaningful, because AI content is drafting what stuff people already know and collating it together.
Already,
well, how's that advancing knowledge?
Yeah. Would Google know that you've used it?
Well, this is it. So Google have said that categorically they do not like AI content. You should not use it. Okay. Then, I can't remember when it was, a couple of months ago, they said they're releasing a new algorithm that's going to specifically target AI content, and if you're using AI content, you're going to be dropped. Okay?
Right.
This update came, it went, none of the AI content dropped, or very little of it. So the question is Google going to just let AI content be, which I think is very unlikely, or is Google just not clever enough to identify AI content yet?
Well, they're going to have to accept it to an extent, maybe.
But are they though? Because end of the day, as I just said a minute ago, Google just wants genuinely meaningful, informative content that helps somebody, that's brilliant. And is AI content that? It's good, yes, and it's collated other stuff, but is it?
Well, like you said, it's not providing anything new. It's just borrowing from everything else.
And part of part of Google's algorithm is providing new information. So, for example, if you if this is relevant to any topic anywhere in the world about any industry. If you're not going to find 10 websites that say the same thing or similar information. One of them might be ranking there just because they go off on a twist on something different, gives a new angle. Well, AI content at the moment is not going to be doing that. Yeah. So I am not using any AI content at the moment at all, for the reason that if Google isn't killing it yet, it's probably going to kill it in the future.
Is. Well, it's if it's intelligent enough to be able to decipher and know the difference.
Yes.
Well, as AI advances, because we all know it's going to go through the roof in a few years.
At the minute, certainly, if you were to go into ChatGPT and copy and paste that AI generated content and shove it in, Google would probably more likely recognise that than if you took that, copy and pasted it and tweaked it yourself. You'd be stupid to just copy and paste a blog post from AI. You should be tweaking it yourself.
I haven't done this, and I'm tempted to give it a go. But my advice at the moment is, if it's not use ChatGPT and just tweak it, the other way round. Use it as your research. You know, we talked about theme words before and contextual words, niche vocabulary. Yeah, use ChatGPT as your way of researching those contextual words, and still write your own content that was written by yourself. Yeah, but you're just stealing inspiration from
give me a list of contextualized.
Don't alter ChatGPT. Just pick bits out of it and stick it in your own content.
Right, I think.
We're not
anything else? I was going to wrap up with our closing kind of traditions, but is there anything else you wanted to ask on this topic?
No, I mean, obviously, the best takeaway is if you are struggling with this and you want to do it, is you need to get in touch with David Stubbs, don't you? And go on one of his courses, because it is very, very complicated, I think, for people to do on their own.
It is very complicated. There's so much stuff you need to know, and it's hard to teach it because there's no natural order. I mean, it's very cliche. I do treat it like a jigsaw puzzle. I know that's a cliche thing, but there's so many pieces to it, but there's no order. And it doesn't really make sense until I've given you 90% of the pieces where you can start to see the picture.
Yeah,
you know
I think
it takes time with someone to understand their specific situation to then be able to help them. Yeah. So I suppose for any type of supplier listening that isn't a photographer, what they should be doing is going to Ubersuggest and seeing if their specific niche is getting searched for.
For example, I did one search before I left. Lancashire wedding singer has 10 searches per month. That's it.
Wow.
It's not very high at all. But if you were ranking...
But is it still worth doing because it's so niche?
Yeah, but it can be because first of all, to be on page 1 for you should be easy. Yeah. Because said there's probably no more than 10 Lancashire wedding singers that's actively pushing their websites.
I'm not, just did it.
I know. Not that you've had to
It's
worry
harder
about
to not rank.
If only your business would be better, Howard, if you'd done this years ago. But anyway,
my business is just fine.
You'd be flying if you were doing this.
Yeah, you could have been charging more per wedding. Anyway, but if you were ranking for Lancashire wedding singer, Cheshire wedding singer, Manchester wedding singer, North West wedding singer, Wales wedding singer, Liverpool wedding singer, Lake District wedding singer, suddenly you're building up a big. And this is how I do with my blog post, because Manchester at the moment has 1,900 searches per month, as we said before. Do you know how many searches per month Sandhole Bound wedding photographer gets per month?
So Manchester's 1,900.
Well, how many would you say for South?
I don't know, 50?
It's 10.
10.
So not very high, but
they
rank on like 80 venues.
They're specifically relevant people, aren't they?
Yeah, and I get a lot of people searching for Manchester wedding photography. You don't know what budgets they have, you don't know where they're getting married, the type of wedding they're having. Whereas if they search Sandhole Bound wedding photographer, I'm more likely
you can guess what kind of budget they've probably got.
Guessing more like to have a larger budget, I might be more applicable to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and then you do that with 100 venues. And
then you do that with as many venues as time allows. Yeah,
brilliant.
Absolutely.
I don't know about you, I'm going to be checking loads of search terms on Google today.
Closing traditions.
Closing traditions, questions. Obviously, you've been a wedding photographer for a long time. You've done a lot of weddings. There's always a story with some wedding. So the question is, what is the funniest, most embarrassing story?
Your best, craziest wedding story.
I've got the best crazy wedding story, but it's not necessarily an embarrassing one. That's all.
Well, forget the word embarrassing. Just a really good, funny.
An interesting story. Anyway, so nearly 2 years ago, I was doing a wedding at the Mandarin Oriental Hotel in Hyde Park, posh 5-star
in London. Nice
5-star hotel, Michelin star, all that. Nice, well-to-do wedding with a lot of champagne being drank, a lot of guests, and they were having their wedding reception on the lawn outside. And on the back of the lawn, you've just got a small hedge, kind of waist height, and behind that's Hyde Park, where anyone can just walk past and stuff like that. So we were just doing drinks reception, a lot of champagne, black tie, Jewish wedding.
Yeah.
Really nice. And then suddenly there was these loud voices, like megaphone, and wedding protesters arrived at the wedding.
No way. I didn't even think there was such a thing.
They
Who
weren't
would protest the wedding?
Well, they weren't protesting the wedding as such. They were protesting rich people spending money on unnecessary things when there's, in their words, homeless people on the street next door. Okay. Right.
So they were heckling the wedding?
They were heckling the wedding.
No way.
They were in long white coats, heckling a wedding with megaphones on the Hyde Park side.
Oh,
so
my God.
Nothing that the venue or the hotel could do about it. Oh my God, they went
carnage.
to town. It was carnage.
How did you deal with that?
They were swearing, they were insulting the bride and groom, they were saying about rich people and putting them down. We'll let you off if this is a vegan wedding. That's one of the phrases they used, which clearly it wasn't.
God.
Anyway, so
did you take pictures of
course
them?
I took pictures, loads of it as well. It's my kind of, I love anything that...
We'll let you off if it's a vegan wedding.
So, and this is where it got really interesting.
Vegans are allowed.
This is where it got really interesting because, all the guests started to kind of be ushered inside. Anyway, fair enough. Some of the groomsmen took it upon themselves, probably after having a few champagnes, to kind of see to these guys.
Right.
I've never shown these pictures. I'll have to show you off camera. I don't actually know where they are. I'll have to send them you. They jumped over the fence, the gate, which was locked, and they basically completely beat the shit out of one of these guys. and megaphones smashed.
God.
And really went to town.
Battering them with their own megaphone.
Punches were thrown and everything, and I didn't know this until I was looking. I literally jumped the fence and just took pictures of the lot. I was just like, this is brilliant.
I love that you were there getting pictures.
Oh, this documentary photography is its best.
I think that's the only way to do it.
I didn't know until I took pictures afterwards that in the distance, before punches were thrown, there was a police van, literally on Hyde Park, sat there, but a red one, which I didn't know till later is ambassador of police for an embassy police. But anyway, so the police van then flew up like that, stopped, One of the groomsmen kind of ran away because he was a bit worried and stayed there. But they just threw the 2 protesters in the back of the van and drove them away.
Oh, good. Should have done that at the start, shouldn't they?
Yeah. So yeah, that's one of my crazy stories that happened.
That is very unique story.
I've got a photo, and videographers moan about photographers all the time. You know, you've got to get closer to the picture, the better the picture. So I was getting as close as I could.
That is a good one.
My favourite picture is I've got a picture of some people would
was it like
there's a leg in the air from one of the groomsmen and just kicked the megaphone. The megaphone's flying off, and there's a piece of the megaphone in the air because it's broke the megaphone. Like as he kicked.
Could we get that picture and blur out face and put it on this blog?
Did the bride and groom enjoy those?
The bride and groom. Yes, they did enjoy them, and in fact, the groom asked me for that picture specifically after the wedding because I showed him on the back of the camera. I was like, look at this, and which I don't usually do, but anyway. Yeah. And he actually sent it to that groomsman as a gift frame.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, but then he did say afterwards to delete those pictures, and I will have a copy, but never show them.
Never show them. So maybe we
which is fair enough because it's you cannot because it's.
Sorry, on the podcast.
I was photographing something. The wedding protest shouldn't have happened, but then people would argue that they shouldn't have then gone and started punching and kicking, and which is true. But anyway, that's a crazy.
They probably
wedding
shouldn't have beat the crap out of them.
It's
a great story.
It's a great story.
Does that beat Andy Murphy's wedding guest having a wee next to him story?
Yeah, I think so. That's more expected, though.
It's a good that one.
But you could see that.
Did
happening.
Andy Murphy not tell the story where he put a guest in the back of his car and took them to hospital?
Oh, the broken leg, was it?
Broken leg story.
Yeah. Oh, that
put them on.
I think the ween one. I think it just sticks in his mind so much.
I've not heard the ween one.
It's on one of our podcasts.
You'll have to listen to episode number Andy Murphy.
Four.
Great story, that, David. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Another thing that we ask every guest is, obviously we're all in the wedding industry. If you weren't a photographer, what would you, and you had to choose a different trade within the wedding industry?
Within the wedding industry.
Within the wedding industry.
I was about to say a racing driver. I can't say that.
If you were doing a different
something else,
in
the wedding.
I can't do video, so it's definitely not video. I can't sing, so it's definitely not that.
I could see you being like a hairstylist, like really camp.
Yeah, I could
really camp hairstylist.
I could.
He's at least camp person.
Not hair, but makeup.
I
know. I tell you what, I know more makeup than most people actually from photographing like 400 brides.
You could probably do it.
I recommend brands to brides. I recommend this. I know when a makeup artist isn't doing as good as she could do. Honestly, I'm thinking.
He's just answered the question, hasn't he?
Oh my god! Yeah, right.
Makeup artist.
Makeup artist. There we are. Definitely.
I've been shopping with Jay, my partner, and we've gone in the makeup shop and been like, "Oh, I'll try this one. This one. People love this one." And she's like,
"Honestly, I'm like that too." So honestly, I do that too. And and I know when a makeup artist is behind as well. I'm like going to mother a bride, going, she's definitely going to be 10 minutes late. And it's like, how do you know that? An hour and a half. I know she's going to be late.
So maybe not that you'd want to, but maybe you should be a makeup artist. Right, so we're going to ask you in a sec if you've got a question for the next guest, and that is a surprise because the idea is you don't know who that is. You just ask a question.
Right,
we got one from Neil, didn't we?
So Neil asked,
knowing that it was me or not.
No, he didn't know it was you.
Okay.
But funnily enough, I maybe know the answer already because his question was, if you were trying to approach venues to work at a specific venue, what's the first thing that you would do? But your answer's got to be SEO related.
So, ask the question again. Ask the question again. Go on.
If you were to approach a new venue that you wanted to work at,
what with SEO you mean, right?
No, just in general.
Right.
If you wanted to work at a venue,
yeah.
What's the first strategy you would use to get in that venue?
To get in that venue, I ring them.
Oh, so because I just assumed your answer would be SEO related.
To work at a venue, I could easily rank. I could easily create a blog post to rank for a venue. But if it's a brand, is it a new venue or just a venue I've not worked at?
Just one you've not been to.
Just one that you want. Maybe you want to work at. What would be the first thing you do?
I misunderstood your question. I could just blog a venue that I've never worked at and just put generic images at that. I worked with a videographer a few years ago who blogged wedding videography Santorini and never been to Santorini before and booked work in Santorini. Just put generic videos up there, destination videos. But yeah,
power of SEO, you can get into venues that you've never even.
You don't have to have worked there before. You just have to have images that are generic or something like that.
Although Neil didn't know who would be on next, he asked the perfect question because it related to what we were talking about.
I don't know. You're going to ask me now what question to ask the next person.
Have you got a question for the next guest? It has to be like businessy, wedding specific as a wedding industry business related question.
Apologies if it's not a good question. If you could quadruple your level of work, could you maintain that? Or if you couldn't, what would you put in place to maintain that level of work?
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
It has to be like significantly, not just a few more bookings, but like.
So if you were going to go to absolute mayhem and really put the work in.
If you really wanted to grow it into something big.
Is the question, how would you quadruple it?
How would you scale it?
No, if it was quadrupled.
If
suddenly
it was
you got
quadrupled,
how would you maintain that level? What would you have to put in place to run your business?
From higher powers, all of a sudden overnight, you just were inundated.
Inundated with work.
How would you maintain? How would you do it?
How would you actually how would you change your business to run that level of work?
I bet people don't prepare for that.
So people can't answer. They can't answer that with, "Well, I just wouldn't. I'd still do the small amount. I just ignore all."
You've got to do it.
Howard, if you had 150 weddings in for next year, how would you do that? Because it might be different for you because you have to be at those weddings. Whereas I don't know who the next guest is. It might be that they could subcontract out some of this.
We'll wait to see what you say.
Cheers, mate. Right, David Stubbs. I presume people can find you online. Obviously, I'm guessing there's going to be people interested in talking to you more about SEO.
Just head to my website. Just go to For Photographers.
Is your SEO thing on your website?
It's on my website on the menu For Photographers.
If you were to search on Google SEO workshop or training,
wedding workshop training, yes.
Do you rank highly?
I could rank high because I don't put. I get most of my work actually through recommendation for SEO.
For the SEO
which is
stuff,
contradictory, but that's how most of my through groups pushing it, Facebook groups.
Well, obviously, if anybody ever asks us about SEO, we think of you, and that you'd get that recommendation.
We'll link it on the YouTube version of the podcast. But if anyone's listening, then they want to find it, then they can find it on your website. David Stubbs, thank you very much.
Mate, it's been brilliant to have you, and it's blown my mind. It's just
hopefully not too boring.
If anyone has any questions about this, then fire them in, and we can maybe send them across.
Yeah, or just send them directly to me.
Yeah. Great,
perfect, mate. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Shuffle papers and pretend to talk about. So thanks so much for listening. We really hope that you found this episode insightful, inspirational, and if you did enjoy that, then please consider subscribing to us wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify. We're Think Wedding Business.
We're also on YouTube and Instagram, so if you want to watch us, you can go over to YouTube and find us at Think Wedding Business. And the same over on Instagram to keep up with all of our future episodes.
We'd really love you to subscribe and join us on this journey. And if you do like this content, please consider giving us a 5-star review. It just helps us get seen and helps spread the word.
So thanks again for listening,
Wings
and we'll see you
out.
next time.
Bye-bye.